In May 2020, the Brawl Stars team released one of the biggest and most impactful updates in the game's history, the Brawl Pass. This update was a huge step in the direction of free-to-play players thanks to the introduction of the Brawl Pass. Unlike other Supercell games such as Clash Royale or Clash of Clans, in Brawl Stars the Brawl Pass was sold for gems, instead of real money. Players were very excited about this change, as it was a simplification and boost of the game's progression, especially for free-to-play players. The Brawl Pass also introduced a new rarity to the game in the same update, the Chromatic Brawler. This was a new rarity that would lose its rarity status over time. And each time you brought a Brawl Pass, you were given a Chromatic Brawler and a skin to go with it. This video I'll go through the history of each Brawl Pass, also explaining why most Chromatic Brawlers were a little strong, or even a little too strong when they were released. Buster and Surge. In April 2020, Brawl Stars teased us with its highly anticipated first ever season, titled Tara's Bazaar. This marked the beginning of a new era for the game, as the introduction of seasons brought a whole new level of excitement for players. The way it worked was that every 2 months a new season with multiple tiers would get added to the game, and as players complete the quests within the pass, they would progress through the tiers and unlock a variety of rewards. These rewards range from new brawlers, skins, progression with coins and power points, and gems, enhancing the overall gameplay experience. One of the main reasons the Brawl Pass was introduced was because of the community's desire for more rewarding experiences and additional incentives for gameplay. And Supercell, doing what Supercell does, they added it, and they were very successful, as shown by the overwhelmingly positive reception from the introduction of the Brawl Pass in the first season. Both free-to-play and pay-to-win players were able to unlock better rewards than they ever did before, and it didn't really feel like it was too unfair towards either side. Additionally, free-to-play players gained the opportunity to earn exclusive rewards, something they weren't really able to do before. So, in essence, the Brawl Pass was nothing short of game-changing. It basically revolutionized and changed the progression of Brawl Stars forever. As previously mentioned, the first ever season was Tara's Bazaar. It introduced the environment for Tara, Jean and Sandy. And this season introduced the new rarity, Chromatic, which was in the legendary rarity in the first season, Mythic in the second, and every other season after that it was just stay as Epic. And the first Chromatic Brawler was Gale. Gale is a handyman who works at Snowtail, and he can't take a rest for a moment because Mr. P is always giving him new tasks. Gale was, well, honestly, he was pretty underwhelming upon release. He shot 5 big snowballs instead of 6 small ones like he does today. His super, oddly enough, knocked him back when the player used it, and in general he was not very good. The Brawl Pass skin was liked by many players though. Overall, this season was pretty good. The Brawl Pass had 60 tiers, though it would later be increased to 70 starting the next season. Speaking of the next season, 2 months later Season 2 was released, and it introduced a new extremely broken brawler, Surge. Surge is a vending machine robot who likes parties and protects Super City with Max and Meg, though Meg wasn't released yet. He shoots energy drink from his arms to hit enemies. The energy drink he shoots is the same as Max usually drinks. For the most part, Surge wasn't entirely overpowered, but what made him so insanely strong was his first star power, which split his projectile without having to land on an enemy. This season is very memorable since it was one of the worst metas that we ever had in a while. Not only did we have to deal with the absolute monster that is Surge, but also with Mr. P, who received a buff to his star power, which allowed him to seemingly spawn an infinite number of porters. Well, at least that's what it felt like. Another pain in the game was Max, who could deal 2000 damage with just 1 ammo shot, which was huge at the time. Besides that, her super was quite strong and was even able to charge automatically thanks to her star power. Gale did get a rework this update, making him one of the best brawlers this season. To put it short, this meta was pretty wild, and to be honest, it is a topic for another video with how crazy it was. The environment for this season was Super City, the home of Max, Surge, and the later introduced Meg. This season lasted 8 weeks since Supercell was on a summer break during July. After the painful 8 weeks of the Surge meta, Season 3 finally arrived with balance changes, which made the meta back to normal again. Season 3 introduced us to the Star Park gift shop, since WKBRL was popping off during that time. The brawler for Season 3 was Colette, who was very popular among part of the community. Colette is an exception. In terms of stats, she was probably the weakest brawler on release. But 3 days after her release, she received 5 buffs, and in the days and weeks ahead, she received 4 additional buffs. And fun fact, Colette is one of the few brawlers who have never received a nerf, well, at least at the time of writing this video. Moving on to Season 4, named Holiday Getaway. This season added Mr. Peace Snowtail and the new brawler, Lou, which is a robot that works in the Snowtail. He has his ice creams and sauces in his own body. Lou, much like his fellow co-worker Gale, was also pretty underwhelming on release, though Lou was properly balanced after 1 day. Nowadays he has his place in Hot Zone, and along with Colette is one of the only brawlers who has never been nerfed. In Season 5, Brawl Stars introduced the Star Force theme, taking players on an intergalactic adventure, with the environment being a futuristic space setting. The chromatic brawler for this season was Colonel Ruffs, a seasoned space captain with an attack similar to Rico and a powerful super which buffed teammates and destroyed the map. Interestingly enough, this season, including Ruffs, was a callback to the game's original premise, a game set in space, with Ruffs being one of the main characters at the time. Interestingly enough, this season, including Ruffs, was a callback to the game's original premise, a game set in space, with Ruffs being one of the characters at the time. Colonel Ruffs had average strength, which offered a balanced gameplay experience for players, and since he was mainly a support brawler, he allowed his teammates to actually shine in the game. With his rather strong gadgets, especially sandbags, Colonel Ruffs became a pretty reliable choice for players. Season 6 brought the Gold Arm Gang theme to Brawl Stars, introducing a new heist trio with a new chromatic brawler, Belle. Much like Season 5, this season was also a callback to the game's earlier years, except instead of being the game's alpha stages, it was the beta stages, as Brawl Stars was a western-themed game for a large chunk of the game's beta development. In Season 6, the environment was centered around the Star Bank, a notorious location associated with criminal activities, particularly from Belle, who is a sharp-shooting outlaw with a bouncing projectile. Belle's precision and long-range attacks make her very strong on release. Moving on to Season 7, where Brawl Stars took players with the Jurassic Splash theme in a world of an exciting water park. The environment is the Velociraptor's Water Park, a water-based amusement park where players could witness the water park during battle. The chromatic brawler for this season was Buzz, a lifeguard at Velociraptors that is obsessed with rules. He thinks he's the best lifeguard ever with his torpedo. It's unknown if that's a dinosaur suit or is just really like that. Buzz's super ability is that he can pull himself to his enemies, stunning them upon contact, which made him a popular choice among players seeking to assassin low health brawlers. Season 8 introduced the Once Upon a Brawl theme to Brawl Stars. The environment for this season is the Castle Courtyard, which featured the home of Ash, the chromatic brawler for this season. Ash, also known as the Trash Knight, is obsessed with keeping the castle courtyard clean from trash, and he takes the trash to put it in the same trash can he wears. Ash brought an interesting mechanic to the game, the Rage Bar. Ash charges his Rage Bar while attacking, and with increased rage he increases the damage and movement speed. Ash was a great addition and was able to remain balanced, not being overpowered but also not too weak. He was a good balanced brawler on release. Brawlywood took center stage in Season 9 of Brawl Stars. The environment was Brawlywood Studios, where brawlers became stars like Lola. Lola is a guide at the Brawlywood and she's convinced she's the star of the cinema. In fact, she always wants to be the center of the attention. She also has another side, a dark one, that is her counterpart. Lola was the chromatic brawler introduced in Season 9, and at first she was extremely strong, dealing an insane amount of damage with her ego beside her. A balance change later on made her ego deal 50% less damage when standing right next to Lola, making her pretty balanced to this day. In Season 10, Brawl Stars celebrated the Year of the Tiger with a video game environment known as the Tiger Pit. Players were playing an old video game within a video game, which was pretty funny and something different and unique than the usual environments. The chromatic brawler introduced was Fang, who is a guy who likes fighting and movies about it. He apparently went to Star Park for fighting, according to an animation. His best friend Buster, which we'll come back to later, is the person he spends more time with, and they're always controlled by Maisie, which we'll also come back to later, because they often create messes everywhere. Anyway, Fang also has a crush on Shelly. Fang's overpowered abilities made him dominant and very OP on release. The meta was almost as bad as the Season 2 meta, since Fang was absolutely dominating on almost every match, with his insane assassin abilities and his overpowered second gadget, which could instantly stun any enemy next to him for 2 seconds. Considering how strong he was, it's kinda crazy how Supercell took a whole 3 months to nerf him. And speaking of 3 months, 3 months later in Season 11 Brawl Stars introduced the Biodome theme, adding the environment for Rosa, Bee and Sprout, Rosa's lab. The chromatic brawler introduced this season was Eve, who has crashed into Rosa's lab with her spacecraft. Eve is a little mother flea that loves her children and wants only the best for them. She always searches for the best place where they can stay. But she's also an alien, in fact she flies with her little spaceship. She's in the Star Force trio and she loves Ruffs because it looks like the best place for her and her children. Eve was considered as above average, since her damage output and her range was insane, but she was nerfed rather quickly in comparison to other strong brawlers. Looking at you, Fang. 2 months later, the Season 12 brought the stunt show theme to Brawl Stars, where the environment transformed into a dynamic stunt arena. The stunt show became the home for Stu and his 2 stepdaughters, Janet and Bonnie. Janet was the newest chromatic brawler, a space idol with a new interesting mechanic, the ability to fly. Janet was quite overpowered on release, making her a must-pick in battles until 2023, where she was nerfed to the ground. The stunt show really did bring a nice addition, not only as an environment, but also lore-wise, since now we know that Stu is a stepfather. Moving on, in Season 13 Brawl Stars took players on an underwater adventure with the new Deep Sea Brawl season. The environment toured players into the depths of the ocean, revealing a sea creature named Otis, who is the new chromatic brawler introduced in this season. Otis is a weird creature who lives in the depths of the Sea of Star Park. He has a talent, art. He makes art everywhere even if he can't speak, his art represents what he thinks. He has a best friend, his fellow starfish Seal, that is also his super in-game. However, Otis was rated as below average, despite the fact that his super could literally make enemies unable to attack. Despite his low start, Otis would get a buff in the future, which even made him top 5 for some time. One thing about this season that makes it interesting in terms of history was how unanimously depressing it was for players at the time. Not because of the season itself, but rather because of what was going on, which was Gears. Which, as you may know, was something that was heavily damaging Brawl Stars at the time. However, when Season 13 released, Gears were around for a little over half a year, and yet they received hardly any changes at all, despite the fact that they desperately needed one at the time. Because of this, the player morale throughout Season 13 was pretty low, especially considering how this was the summer update as well, and yet nothing happened to the #1 thing killing the game. Anyway, Season 14 introduced the futuristic Robot Factory theme to Brawl Stars. The Robot Factory environment was also used for Showdown, something that was quite rare since the new environments weren't really used in Showdown all that much. The Robot Factory matched the chromatic brawler of this season, Sam, since he hated robots. Sam is part of the Gold Arm trio, having Belle as his partner in crime. Sam introduced a unique mechanic, making him the only brawler, until Chuck, who had his super right from the start of the match. The super worked very interestingly, since if he had this super, he would attack slower but with high damage, and without it, he would attack faster but have lower damage. He was, well, overpowered, since his star power allowed him to heal 30% of his missing health every time he picks up his super. Moving on to Season 15, Brawl Stars added the home of the Brawler Goose, who was introduced one season before the Ghost Station. This environment was very beautiful, and in my opinion I consider it to be one of the best environments we have had to this day. The Ghost Station was a season that perfectly fit the holiday during the time, which was Halloween, although the season was still active during Christmas and it didn't really fit Christmas. Anyway, the chromatic brawler introduced in this season was Buster, the partner for Fang, working alongside with him in the movie theater. Buster's super was, well, busted. And I'm not just saying that to make a silly pun, I'm saying that Buster was extremely busted. His super was very overpowered and broken, since he could block and deflect any projectile with ease. Though he had some nerfs before the World Finals 2022, he was still picked quite a bit and had a pretty good win rate.
Or not, because Bo is a perfectly fine gem carrier, but if you can phenomenal brawler that can open up walls, that can have a lot of damage in a zone as well.
Plays we saw, we could see potentially another sharpshooter to join the mix here. Buster though gonna come in and
Division 1, their draft now is locked in.
Buster coming in, and I really do like this comp on both sides, but they're so fun.
Teams like Zeta 0 and Zeta 1 picked him a lot in the finals. Over the course of 3 whole months, Buster received a whopping 10 nerfs, which of course made him a lot weaker. This just pretty much shows how insanely broken Buster was upon release. The next season was Season 16, taking players on a sweet and sugary adventure in the Candyland theme. The environment transformed into the Candy Kingdom, a land filled with candy structures and clouds. The chromatic brawler introduced this season was Mandy, an annoyed worker in her candy store in Candyland. Candyland is a place in Star Park where everything is edible and made out of candies and sweets. Mandy wants everything to be perfect, and she feels like the queen of that place. Mandy was pretty balanced on release, not being too weak like Colette or too strong like Buster. Along with Mandy, another brawler added was Chester, who was, well, a jester who pranks Mandy in her store. If I had to explain Chester's personality, he's like the type of guy to rob your house and say, "It's just a prank, bro," when you catch him. The addition of Chester with Mandy was pretty fitting because they are in the same trio and they both have a love-hate relationship. So, lore-wise, they were a good addition, and to this day they are both pretty balanced, although Chester was pretty OP upon release. His unique mechanic, which made him a legendary brawler, was his super, which had 5 forms: Explosion, Slow, Stun, Poison, and Heal, which made him very fun to play. Season 17 brought a sense of mystery to Brawl Stars with the Mystery at the Hub theme. The environment centered around the Star Park Hub, a central location where you could get directions to all the other areas of the park. The chromatic brawler introduced this season was RT, who is a brawler who spies on everyone else in the game to control their movements. This robot splits into 2 parts so he can go around the park and remain safe at the Star Park Hub at the same time. He works in the exact tower where the WKBRL radio is located. RT was pretty overpowered since he did huge amounts of damage and marked targets kinda like Belle. 2 months later, in Season 18, Brawl Stars entered the wild jungle filled with trees, temple and wildlife. The chromatic brawler introduced this season was Maisie, the 3rd member of the Turbo Theater with Fang and Buster. Maisie is like a big sister for Fang and Buster. She is the leader of the trio and she can't catch a break because her brothers are always getting into trouble. But she still loves them no matter what. Maisie was below average on release since her shot was very difficult to land. Putting that aside, Maisie was a great and fitting addition to the theater trio in my opinion. Season 19 enchanted players with the magical Enchanted Woods theme. The environment transformed into a forest filled with mythical creatures like the chromatic brawler of this season, Cordelius, who is a powerful mushroom head. Cordelius is a weird gardener who is obsessed with mushrooms. He works in the enchanted forest. Cordelius' super was very unique as he could send players into a 1v1 dimension, making them an easy kill for the player who is playing him. Because of this, Cordelius was quite overpowered upon release, dominating in Power League and especially in the esports scene. Soon though, Cordelius received 2 small nerfs which actually had a big impact on him. He couldn't charge his super in the Shadow Realm anymore, and he also got a small nerf to his second gadget, which was Otis Super but half the duration. In Season 20, Pearl was released alongside the new Back to Ranger Ranch season. Pearl is the beloved daughter of Belle and Sam. She's a part of the Gold Arm gang, and even if she is a robot, her parents still love her. One of the reasons why they love Pearl is because she bakes cookies. Delicious cookies that taste really good. At the moment of this video, we haven't really seen Pearl's state in the meta, but it looks like Pearl is going to be very strong. This was the entire history of every Brawl Pass. What season was your favorite? What season was your least favorite? Write it in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!